But you're going to have to work really hard and just remember that that's enough and you're enough. People want to run away from those uncomfortable feelings. I think that's where a lot of good stuff comes from.
What are your thoughts on artists bringing politics into their art?
All songs need to mean something. If you can do something very powerful, like Rockin' in the Free World is such a banger and it comes on, everybody rocks. But that guy is calling out the United States of America.
I think this conversation is going to inspire a lot of people. There's a lot of people out there like you who want to stay in this industry and they want longevity. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Safe Harbour podcast. Tonight, I'm sitting down with the one and only Colin McDonald, lead singer, powerhouse frontman of the TREWS, who are once again celebrating a #1 hit on Canadian rock radio. The TREWS have never been about chasing trends or one-hit wonders. Their story is one of grit, growth, and longevity. I've had the privilege of knowing these guys for over 20 years, and I've watched them evolve into one of Canada's most respected and beloved rock bands. Today, Colin joins me for a deeper conversation, not just about music, but about personal transformation. We're here to talk about his sobriety journey, the lessons he's learned, and the impact of choosing a new way of living, both off and on the stage. So welcome, Colin McDonald, lead singer of the TREWS. I did some digging today because it was killing me. I couldn't remember when it was when we first met. John Angus said you have a memory unlike anyone else. So do you remember? I remember it was at Zaphod's when you guys were touring with Crush,
Yes, I remember that. It was
Halifax band,
that was winter of 2003.
2003. Okay. Okay. Wow. I was way off.
Yeah, no, it was 2003. And
2003.
the first, no, it wasn't the first, but it was like our record was finished. Our very first record that came out the following August. And we were just kind of trying to find gigs anywhere we could that were like a little bit more than just what we had been doing, which was, playing bar shows, any place that would have us doing residency gigs, mixing up covers and originals. And I remember that year was kind of about a concerted effort to be on bills as like a 45-minute opening act playing our new record.
Yeah, I remember it well because at that time I didn't have any money, and like I was running this street zine basically as an excuse to get into concerts for free. I was like, oh, if I can reach out to these people and get an interview, I'll publish it, but I get free tickets. And Crush had a hit at the, I can't remember what it was called.
Well, their first hit was called "I Just Want to Live" or "Live," and then the hit at that time was "King for a Day." I think.
King for a Day. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're right. That's what it was. And their management team never got back to me, but yours did. And they had sent me like I think it was like an EP in the mail, and I was in the parking lot, and I put it on, like heading into the interview, and I remember "You're So Sober" came on, and I was like, "Holy, these guys are amazing!" I was so underprepared,
Right.
and when I went in, I think you guys were coming from Montreal, and John Angus approached me, and he said, "Oh, hi, you're the journalist here to interview Colin," and he said, "I can do the interview instead." And I was like, "No, that's okay. I'll wait for Colin." And that's kind of like the running joke. But anyways, it's good to see you. Congratulations on the breakdown going to #1.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
That's huge. It's 20 years almost, right? Since the last #1.
Yeah. Last number one was December of 2005. So,
Yeah. Did you know this was going to be a special one?
I mean, I knew it was good. I think everything we do is pretty good. I knew that we were hitting something with the Glorious Sons guys in the producer seat because I started to feel that little hair standing up on the back of your arm or whatever when I was listening to the playbacks, and I was like, "Oh, this is really good." I think there was a lot of great songs, and there's a lot of great songs coming. And
Yeah.
it was actually our radio person, Jody Decker, who said, "This is the song I want to work. This is the one." And once I heard her say, like, like I kind of believe in all the songs, and just knowing how much she believed in that one, I said, "Yeah, go for it. Let's see what happens." And it went all the way. So I mean, that's great. You never know. Never say no one really knows. You just kind of go on hunches and feelings, and you can be wrong, you can be right. And Jody really did a great job. She really ran it all the way up there and really, really worked it for us, which is really nice to have that kind of level of commitment this day and age. So we're, yeah, thrilled.
Yeah. Jody's the best. She does a lot of work with us with harmonies
Yeah,
and
she said, yeah, she's the first person that told me about harmonies.
oh really? Okay. Cool. Yeah. So we've got a song coming out June 6th and all we can do is hope.
I think the most important thing for bands is just to be really happy and confident with the work that you're putting out, because, that's kind of has to be the reward, because there's no predicting what's going to go viral or what's going to take off on the radio. That's tough to do these days.
Yeah, there's no blueprint anymore. It doesn't work the way that it used to. Being out of the music industry for a long time and focusing on my career with the government, it's been it's been crazy coming back into it after all these years. And honestly, you could probably fill two internets with what I don't know about the music industry. But I'm learning and I'm watching and trying to figure out the trends. But ultimately, I think you're right. It just comes down to putting out music that you're really proud of
Yeah,
and standing behind it and hoping
yeah,
everyone else feels the same way.
yeah. You really have to believe in it these days, and I think and you got to work. That's not just fake. You can't just fake believe in stuff. People can see right through that. It's like you have to get it to a certain standard, to a certain level and just in my case, just like a certain level that I want the music to live up to. Because if I'm going to be out there trying to sell it every night in front of crowds, I want to believe in it 150%. So that's kind of where my attention goes.
Have you ever released a song that you didn't fully believe in?
Yeah, of course. I mean, and I've been wrong. I didn't think Not Ready to Go was a good song. And that was our first number one hit. When our House of Fame came out, we weren't even playing that song in the set. We're like, it's too this and that. Now, maybe now I love it. And then when I heard it on the radio, I was like, oh yeah, I know why this is great. But it wasn't my first choice. A lot of things that I've really believed in were the most popular songs, but I still love them all. My little brother, he's a stand-up comedian guy, and he's really into like the acting scene. And he once told me, sometimes an artist's biggest enemy could be their own instincts. And that kind of flies in the face of what I've just been talking about. But, you could be working on something you think is so great, and you listen back the next day and you're like, that wasn't that great. And then there's other times where you're like pulling your hair out over something and you just think it's terrible, and you revisit it, and that's the best thing you got. So sometimes you don't know.
Yeah.
So I think it's different. You still, at least in my case, I still really work hard on that side of it. That's always what has kept me grounded in this business. Most of my concern is the songwriting, and I write every day, and the lion's share of the tunes that we have usually start with something I came up with in this little room. I rely a lot on my super talented bandmates and all of their artistic values, but my priority has always been the music.
Yeah. I love that. That's a perfect answer. I don't know how much you know about what I've been trying to build over here, but Safe Harbor didn't necessarily start out in the sense that I was looking to help coach artists, but it's kind of taken that turn. And I coach a lot of people who are in like a crisis, like a mental, physical, or spiritual crisis. And I support a few people in their sobriety journeys. So when we crossed paths last summer at Jackson TREWS, that's when you told me that you were sober. And
Yeah.
I think you had said for 3 years. Am I wrong on that?
No, yeah, I'm coming up on 4 in June.
Yeah. So honestly, when I think I was taken aback when you said that because, I've known you guys since ZPod, so 2003, and
Yeah.
we've hung out a lot in, different cities all over Canada and had partied. And um, I was curious about that. Have you spoken about this journey yet with sobriety?
No, I've mentioned it. I'm a little hesitant to kind of make it an identity for me.
Mhm.
I think everybody's got their own things to deal with, and especially in the age of influencers and everything. Like I still have this maybe naive old school I just want the music to do the talking and just be good at that, without having some kind of side persona or side hustle or, I know that might not be the reality of our current media landscape, but I've been a little hesitant to kind of talk about it. Mostly, I think at first because I tried to get sober uh, like a few times. Like I got sober in 2018 and that lasted till 2019. And then I got sober in 2020. But that was at the beginning of the pandemic and then
Yeah,
shit got all crazy. So I was a little bit worried about like making it a big deal and then, not being able to hold up my end of the bargain too. I didn't want to
of
be
course.
personal in that regard, but yeah, I've been sober now for a long time, and it's been difficult, but it's been pretty rewarding. Um, I always talk about it in terms of percentages. Like when you're drinking and partying, life can be 150% or negative 150% in terms of the way you're feeling, and when you stay sober, everything's about 72% all the time. It's like it's not never too high. It never goes crashing and burning.
Yeah.
I like being in that sweet spot. It's been good for my work. It's been good for my voice. It's been good for my levels of productivity. I've been able to accomplish a lot. You realize, especially when you get sober, and just how much time is wasted just kind of recovering from the hangovers and the anxiety and yeah, you're just unhealthy. You just don't feel right. I've been pretty good with that stuff. And
Yeah.
I mean, I might as well talk about it now, but I in 2021, I really was drinking a lot every night, and I started to realize like I'd moved to Hamilton. Now I didn't really know many people. It was still the pandemic, and there was this great German restaurant slash bar down the street from my place. And they would sell because it was the pandemic. They'd sell like off sales. I would do all those like bargaining, like I'll drink, but I'll just have 2 beer and I won't get anything else. And I'll go for a big walk before I do it. And that'll be my reward. But then they had German beer. So every beer was like 12 or 15%. So I'm like, I'll just have two 15% alcohol beers. And, just, and then and I was like, okay, this is getting to be a problem. And it started to get like, embarrassing and like, calling people up at 3 in the morning. You're just drunk and lonely. It's awful. And my dear late friend, Cody Chasen from the East Pointers, who at the time had been sober for years, and we were working on music for his band, the East Pointers. One day, it was like the day after my last drinking binge, and he just could. Cody was one of those real empaths, and
Mm.
he could kind of see right into your soul. He really was conscientious of other people and very aware, and he just after we were done the writing, it was just me and him. It was like a Zoom thing, like me and you. Only usually it's like all three East Pointers and me. At that point, Cody was just stuck around, and he's just a beautiful guy. And he's long, dirty blonde hair, and just like a hippie. I don't think he would have described himself as a hippie, but yeah, he looked kind of hippie-ish. And he'd be like, "Hey, man, like, what's going on? What's wrong?" And I just kind of fell apart, and I said, "I'm a mess. Like I'm really not doing good." And that was the day I got sober. So
Oh,
that was June 9th of 2021, and it was just sitting down with Cody, just like me and you were sitting down now. And
yeah.
honestly,
What did he say to you?
he just said, "Colin, I know you," and he knew I had tried to get sober in the past, and we worked together by then since about 2018. He just said, "You're not the kind of guy that can drink," and I said, "Think you might be right." And yeah, it was excruciating. Like that first week was trying to get sober was just excruciating. But having a really good friend in Cody, he would call me every day. We just talk and we just walk. I would just walk around and talk to him and just be like, "Man, I'm not good. Like I don't feel right. I feel really messed up." And he kept saying to me like, "Colin, I was so much like this for so long. And talking to you makes me realize how grateful I am for my sobriety right now. But I also know that one day you're going to feel like me." And that just gave me what I needed to push through.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
love Brian and I miss him every day. But Cody, one of the most talented people I've ever met. Yeah, he passed away of a crazy thing in early 22, which was absolutely heartbreaking. But when he passed away, I just said to myself, I'm staying sober, and I'm staying sober forever for Cody. So that's been a big one for me too. Just anytime I'm hanging out and there's drinks or there's some really stressful shit going on in my life, or people are just being on the road, and it can be just so crazy. And I think about Cody. It gives me strength, and I just always think, I don't want to let Cody down. You know?
Yeah, that's really beautiful. I do remember when he passed. I didn't know him personally, but just through the music community,
Yeah,
he seemed like he was a really beloved person.
yeah.
You've touched on a lot of things there, but a lot of people really think, sobriety's just not drinking. But people who've gone through the journey to become sober realize that it's a lot more than that. What would you say has been, one of the biggest things you've learned about yourself going through this?
I have a lot of things that led me to want to drink, and a lot of stressors and things I had to face, stuff going on underneath that was like the drinking was secondary. It was like a way of just kind of self medicating and
Escaping, kind of?
escaping and self medicating, just calming your brain down, like slowing everything down. Drinking is an incredible and terrible medicine, right? Like, I mean, there's a reason why, people who aren't alcoholics, like drinking is amazing, but for people that are alcoholics, it's just, I would have one and I have to have like 20. I could never understand when people came home from work, like, oh, I had such a long day and had my glass of wine and watched my show. I'm like, that's not what I would do. I would come home and
Yeah.
have the entire bottle of wine and then find another place to get another bottle of wine, and probably forget whatever show I was watching by the end of the night. But
Yeah.
part of getting sober is like dealing with the feelings, like the overwhelming feelings that come up, and feeling them, not trying to get away from them, because there's other ways of getting away from them besides just drinking. Like, you can go to the gym 8 hours a day. You can, obsessively work. There's ways my addiction still shows up in other places in my life that I have to be mindful of, because sometimes those things you're feeling, like those hard things, those are the things you have to lean into and get through them and feel them. Like, don't run away from them.
Yeah.
Like,
Are you able to expand on that? Like, what does that look like for you? Like how do you now sit with those feelings?
I've always been a big like, I read a lot, but I also journal a lot because it's also part of like being a lyric writer. So
Of course.
I find journaling really helpful. I find that, like, every morning I'll wake up and the first thing I do is I just grab my journal and I'll just write stream of consciousness for about 3 pages, whatever, everything from whether it's just a dream I'm remembering and writing it down, or got to go get groceries later, or I hate that for doing this, whatever, like whatever's going through, everything's kind of happening all at once. Your ego, id, and super ego, all just like flying out onto the page. And I do that every morning, and then I meditate, and I find it brings me down into my, what they call the window of tolerance. And
Yeah.
I find that makes it easier if I can do that every morning, I can kind of navigate the rest of the day a bit better.
Yeah. That's amazing. I've adapted a similar morning routine recently. So I'm 2 weeks away from 100 days of sobriety.
Oh,
So
good.
a lot of what you're saying rings true. I didn't start because I thought, man, I think I have a problem. I started because, I was going through a really hard time, like really traumatic time. And I started to just realize that, like, even one glass of wine was just tanking my mental health. Not in the moment, but even just the next day. I was just kind of started waking up feeling like way more depressed than you should feel when you just open your eyes, when you wake up in the morning. One of my clients that I coached through sobriety also, he's probably close to 200 days now. I saw the transformation in him. Even though I was coaching him through it, it's so much easier to coach someone than it is, to coach yourself. But journaling, but I say even more than journaling, meditation has changed my life and sort of been my anchor through a
Yeah.
lot of this. And I talk about it a lot, and I sometimes feel like people think, oh, she's, a big hippie, but it's real. And being able to sort of step back from your or I'm saying you, but my wild thoughts and my crazy brain, and being able to be more of an observer of my feelings has helped me find just a lot of clarity
Yeah.
in life. Were there any moments, along the way that almost broke you, where you almost said, "It doesn't matter. I'm just gonna have a drink, see what
Yeah.
happens."
Yeah. I,
Yeah,
I play in a rock and roll band that's known for drinking and sings songs about drinking. And I spent big chunk of my career like drinking and that was just part of the lifestyle.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Like rock and roll equals partying, right?
I mean, we certainly did enough of that. And the best metaphor I heard was it was Bob Rock, actually, the producer of like Metallica and Motley Crue. And we did a session with him in Vancouver, and he said he ran out of drink tickets, or he used up all his drink tickets. And I'm like, yeah, I used up. That's a good one. I used up all my drink tickets. Um, it happens at the weirdest times because sometimes it's not necessarily brought on. I thought it would be more like brought on by, stress and sadness and, disappointment, which, there's enough of that going on, but in the world, but sometimes like even just working with the Glorious Sons guys and working with those guys and the guys in my band, everybody was drinking and having like the best time and making this great music. And I was like, oh, fuck, I really want to be able to get in on this, but then I didn't, I would just go off and do my own thing. And that was my way of, remembering that it wasn't good for me as much fun as it would be in this moment to have some drinks with these guys and just rock out. I just had to remember that like, that's not my path. And it's so funny because I recently did a podcast thing with Brett and Jay and Janigas and Jack. And those guys were talking about, Jay and Brett didn't know if I even liked being in the studio with them because I would always disappear in between my vocal takes. And I'm like, there's a reason for that. Like there was like, coolers full of beer and around. And I was just like, I can't be around that right now. So I just like I just go find a place to hide out, read my books and whatever, it was my way of just staying away from the temptation of it.
Yeah,
And,
that's
and, and I loved, and by the way, I loved working with those guys. I love the record we made.
no
That's
doubt.
everybody's got their own thing.
Yeah, for sure. Um, yeah, I have no doubt about that. I admire that, and I think this conversation is going to inspire a lot of people. I think that there's a lot of people out there like you who want to stay in this industry and they want longevity, right? And how, if there's any risk or chance of dependency with substances, like that's the question, like how do you keep going? It's almost like you have to redefine what what the industry means to you, and how you're gonna navigate it.
Yeah, and like I find that like I also you know been in therapy for a number of years too. Like having a therapist has been big for me. I
Yeah.
started back in 2013. It's not for everybody. It's definitely for me. I try to get better at recognizing when feelings when they come up and not turning them into prolonged storylines or black and white ideas of who I am and where I'm going. And I don't love going to like industry events. I find them kind of like a little bit taxing, but that's how I felt since I was young. I remember showing up at these things and like just always being like, I don't know if I like this. I love being on stage. I love writing songs. I love working with artists. I'm not really that into schmoozing, not
Yeah.
trying to sound like I'm being condescending. Like people got to do what they got to do. No judgment. But I feel like at those places, I'm like, oh, I feel it burning in my chest. And I think this
Yeah.
might feeling of not being comfortable in the situation. And you stay in the situation, you let the feeling pass, and it
Yeah.
passes. You don't like running. The funny thing is everybody wants to run away from the hard stuff and the hard feeling. Not that that's hard, but like people want to run away from those uncomfortable feelings. And that's where there's where all the mistakes are. It's like running away. And when you should be just in them, feeling them.
Yeah.
That's I think that's where a lot of music comes from. I think that's where a lot of good stuff comes from. Just actually sitting with those hard feelings and I think a lot of bad stuff with people and in the world happen from people running away from from things that feel uncomfortable.
Yeah. It's like it's like a cliche these days, everybody's saying it, you know, um, everything you want is on the other side of fear. And we're so fearful as humans to go inwards and sit with our feelings because it
Yeah.
hurts and it's painful and it sucks. And that's when, we're prone to want to numb it. As essentially the foundation of coaching is the idea of naming the feeling, like naming that intense emotion, feeling it, and then shifting it. And that's essentially what you just said. It's like it's changing your perspective on what you're dealing with.
It was
And
like a really long way of saying turn that frown upside down.
turn the frown upside down. Yeah,
Actually, it's not like because that would be like faking that you're sad by just turning your frown upside or whatever. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I don't want to use the word transformation because it makes it seem like I feel like sometimes it can have like a negative undertone. But how has this new way of life affected your relationships, like what with the band or with fans or whoever?
I mean, overall, I think everything's gotten better. I think I've been able to maintain healthier relationships with with friends, family, bandmates, my partner. It doesn't all just go away. It doesn't all of a sudden make it's not like everything's easy or anything. Like things are still difficult and you're still running into like conflict and you're still running into like disappointment, you know, just fear, doubt. It's all still there, but it's just about not letting it take over. It's about not letting it like overcome you, I guess. And it does not things can, be difficult. It doesn't mean it's the end of a relationship or end of a, you have to properly express your uh, desires and what you want and it doesn't have to be dramatic or heated or it can just be like, hey, like I really want to do this way. And when it comes to the band, like communicating artistic
Yeah,
idea, communicating ideas about where the three of us want the TREWS to go, and I think we're getting a lot better at that.
yeah, that's awesome. Has this journey been spiritual at all? Like, has it affected your spirituality at all?
I hmm, that's a good question. I think I could probably maybe use a little bit more of it, to be honest. Sometimes I feel like I lack that a little bit. You got to have some kind of faith, right, to keep moving forward, and it's important, especially for somebody that considers themselves a songwriter or an artist in any regard. Like the idea is that you have to have enough faith that you can make something up out of your imagination and bring it to fruition. Like that alone is an act of faith
Mhm.
because who the hell am I to say I can write a song, but yet I continue to do it? It's like I just have faith that if I sit with my guitar and have my pen and paper and if I get together with John Angus and Jack, um, or any of my other collaborators, something is going to happen and it's going to be pretty good. So that is an act of faith because there's all kinds of reasons to not do that. So I think the act of creation is an act of faith, but I think other than that, sometimes I have a hard time letting go and trusting that things will work out. I do struggle with that because
Okay.
just take a look around, you know what I mean, in the
Like,
world.
yeah, but even still though, like you guys have become one of the most, you know, iconic beloved rock and roll bands in Canada. And
Yeah.
and you still doubt it.
Oh, every day. I just feel like it's all gonna fall apart and I gotta keep working at it and I still haven't quite gotten it and
Really?
oh yeah. Oh yeah. I don't think you're gonna find many people who don't feel that way at the end of the day. It's I've yet to meet anybody in this business where the people that I've admired that have been like, I just have it all figured out and it's every day is awesome. I've never met anybody like that.
Is it about, like, faith in the music industry? Or is this more of an internal, like, you're not sure about
I think it masquerades as a faith in the music industry. I think I put
Yeah.
a lot on the music industry and a lot on the music, but I think there's something underneath that. It's not like I had all this faith in myself until I found the music industry. It wasn't like that. So I think that becomes kind of a manifestation of a deeper fear. There is that drive, like, and the drive is like for me, it's like I want to make better music. I want to make say a like today I want to write a even better lyric. I want to be a better singer. I want to know more music. I want to digest all of the music and listen to I want to know all of the songs on the American Anthology of Folk Music by heart. Like I have those are like that's what keeps me kind of driven to keep being in this because it's like I have so many desires in that regard, just in terms
Yeah.
of you know? And and the other stuff, yeah, I worry about the other stuff. I don't know what people's like, you know, you can have great music and then who knows if the crowd's gonna like it. And then, you have these new songs and you gotta play everything that you have to play the stuff people are familiar with. And
Right. Yeah.
people have so much there's so many choices now and there's so many bands and how do you rise above all that? Like there's all those things that weigh on, I think, every musician.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on artists bringing politics into their arts and into their song
Oh,
lyrics?
I think it's important.
Yeah.
I think music is a platform that needs to have those things in it. I think the power of music is communication. And if you want to communicate something, as long as the song's good, then go for it. I think the song needs to be, I think with every song, the song has to be the best thing about it. And then the message can get by. Like, John Lennon managed to write the Communist Manifesto and nobody noticed it because it was imagined. It was so beautiful. But the stuff
Yeah.
he's saying in that song is like, imagine there's no religion. Imagine no one has any possessions. You might as well have gotten out like the Karl Marx to, write the lyrics. But because it was dressed up in this beautiful melody, everybody's like, oh, it's beautiful. So like,
Yeah.
I think in art, politics, bringing politics into the art is very important, but it's all about the way you do it. And it's all about subtext. And it's all
Yeah.
about nobody wants to be told what they're doing wrong. Nobody wants to be told what to do, but they do love listening to tunes that rock or are beautiful. And like, that's this, if you can, if you can do something very powerful, like Rockin' in the Free World is such a banger and it comes on, everybody rocks. But that guy is calling out the United States of America, emphatically.
Yeah.
But because it's wrapped up in an amazing song, you can get away with a lot. It's like a great movie, you know, ostensibly is just a great movie. You're just watching it like, oh, this is so good, like The Godfather. But no, like underneath the subtext of The Godfather is like, you know, the founding of America and how impossible it is to make it there. Like that's one of the interpretations. But like
Yeah.
like I think that with music and when you're gonna drag politics into it, I think when you make it the forefront and you go out there with your middle finger up saying, "You're wrong," and I think people are gonna go like, "Whatever," like, who wants to hear that in any way? I think it's really important to have a point of view. I think that's the most important thing.
Yeah.
I think it's very but I think you have to remember that quality is king and that the song needs to rule. And then if there's messages in that song that can be helpful, then that's awesome.
Yeah. I'm so happy to hear you say that. It's kind of been a theme on my social media lately because anyway, so I follow a whole bunch of industry people and one specific manager made a whole post on how artists need to keep their noses out of politics and essentially stay in their lane. And I went to read the comments and I was shocked at the amount of people agreeing with him when in reality it has always been done. Like, it has always been done, and it needs to continue, and like you said, you know, sure, make it a great song, and it doesn't have to be about giving people the middle finger, but it can be about making people think and shifting perspective and making people feel, you know?
I agree. And I think when art's done really well, that's what it does. I think what maybe people are talking about is like in the constant flow of opinions and rants and podcasts and they're great. I listen to them all the time. I think people get a little tired of hearing people's opinions on everything. But I think when it comes to, if you really want to make a statement and you do it in a great work of art, I think that's the whole history of humanity. It's
Yeah.
to do though, isn't it? Like it's like you can't, anybody that's waking up in the morning, like I mean, I think it's a noble ambition, but it's hard to make like write a great song that says something, make it mean something, and I think all songs need to mean something, and I think they do need to have a point, and like that's what I strive to do with my band all the time, even if it's just an emotional point. It doesn't have to be overt. I think that's really important.
Yeah. So, Colin, this Colin right now, if you could go back to 16-year-old Colin and Annie Ganesh and sit down with him on a bench and have a conversation,
Yeah.
what would you want him to know? What would
Well,
you tell him?
get to the gym, work out, um, start like exercise. It's good for you. I'd probably say, you're going to have to work really hard and just remember that that's enough and you're enough just doing that. And you should be proud of working hard. And that's going to carry you. And don't let too many people in right away. Like, let people in, but make sure you know who they are before you do that.
Protect yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, you know, the one thing that is great about being young is you are open and you do meet and you think everybody's got your, best interest at heart and everything is great. But you learn the hard way.
Yeah.
And but then that also makes you realize the beautiful people in your world because they're both there.
Yeah.
The angels and the devils are there.
Yes, they are. I was 40 years old when I learned what a boundary was.
Yeah, that's a
You
good year
know,
to yeah.
40,
Me too.
40, 40 changed everything for me. I quit my job, opened my own business,
Yeah.
got back into the music industry.
Got a cool hat.
I've always had hats, but this one's
That Are you like the original influence on John Angus? Because it kind of looks like a John Angus-y kind of hat.
I wouldn't say that to his face, but I would say I probably wore hats before he did.
Planted the seed.
I planted the seed. Yeah. Okay, let's go to fan questions. Someone asked if you know of any up and coming female artists that they should be keeping an eye out for.
Oh, wow. Oh, God, good question. Oh, I like Bernadette Connors. She lives around Hamilton. She's got a really powerful voice. She's collaborated with us a few times. There's so many. I'm just trying to think of some right now.
She's an incredible human. I interviewed her actually. We might do some kind of collab together.
Good,
Actually, yeah,
good. Yeah, that would be.
she's
You
incredible.
guys would be a good. Does she have a manager?
Yeah, she does.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
I feel like I haven't been out in a little bit to check out some new artists, but I'm always kind of looking around. But do you know any up and coming females that are great?
My gosh. I do actually.
You're
I would have said no, and her name just flashed through my mind. I had the chance to be part of Canada's Got Talent. Was not a good experience. It was a horrible experience, but I met this young woman. She's in her early 20s and she's from Iran.
okay.
And she was there by herself. She had only been in Canada for 5 months. And this was her coming out. Like, it's illegal for women to sing in Iran. And so this was her first time ever publicly singing. And we met backstage, in or the green room or whatever. We had hours together before her performance. And I was just really drawn to her. I stood like on stage beside her to support her when she performed. And her name is Saba, and she has the voice of an angel. I don't, yeah, I guess that's all I should say about that. I don't know how far she got or anything, but we've kept in touch. And she is someone who I believe, like, in the depths of my soul is going to, like, everybody's going to know who she is.
Great. Well, can we check her out? Send me some music.
Yeah, she lives in Toronto, actually. So yeah, maybe I'll try even to bring her out to a show or something.
Good.
What books have you enjoyed recently? And I guess the question, yeah, what books have you enjoyed recently? And do you have any phrases that have stuck out with you that might end up in a song in the future?
Well, I'm always reading. I have like actually 2 or 3 books on the go at once. I've been kind of slowly but surely getting through the 7-volume In Search of Lost Time by Marcel Proust, which is which is a heavy lift. It's a little really long sentences, but it's great. Beautiful art. I I just finished James Baldwin's If Beale Street Could Talk. I read I always have like a Stephen King book on the go just before bed because they're fun as
Cool.
hell.
Yeah.
And I read a lot of poetry because I like to stay in that zone. So I usually have, a lot of very famous like T.S. Eliot or Dylan Thomas or, any of that kind of thing on the go. Yeah, I tend to read all the time. And I like to read a vast array of stuff. Like really challenging stuff. I'll kind of read early in the morning because it requires a bit more focus. And
Yeah,
when
definitely.
I'm just tired and got the hockey game on or something, I'll usually just leave through like Needful Things by Stephen King or something.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I love reading. It's one of those things, I think for anybody that's an aspiring writer, reading is part of the job. 2 things come to mind over the years. I remember back when we were doing our second record, Jack Douglas, really famous producer, of Aerosmith and
Yeah.
John Lennon, and he produced Den of Thieves. And I was complaining one day about the road because, we were doing 250 shows a year, and fucking hate being like, and Jack looked at me in his real like simple New York straight ahead like he's like just get a good book going. And I was like, and it just stuck with me. So every time because we travel, like it's actually my constant companion having a book on me because it's like the one thing you can do. You can do it anywhere, on
Yeah.
the airplane, in the lounge, at the hotel, at the
Yeah.
restaurant, whatever. I like it. It's comforting for me. And, the other one is it's actually a Gord Downie-ism, and he was actually talking to my brother about it. They were discussing a band, and then Gord said, "You know what I don't like about young bands? They don't read enough." And I remember when I heard that, I was like, "Oh, okay. Make sure you read a lot." So yeah, yeah, I love it. I love it for many reasons. I love it because I like to think of myself as somebody who works with words, and then I also love it because I just enjoy it.
It's so therapeutic
It is.
because you can kind of choose your therapy too, right? Like you said, like you can choose a thriller, suspense, or this conversation is an excellent reminder to me to pick up those books like the Stephen Kings or the like. I love a good crime novel, but I get so stuck in learning mode where it's like all self help books and coaching stuff, and
Yeah.
and after a while it gets boring.
I like those too. I think it's just like my music taste. Like I'll have like, freewheeling on in the morning and then Metallica Kill 'Em All at night. Like I like a lot of different things and
Yeah,
I take a lot from everything. Maybe that's why we have such an eclectic sound. It's like I get a lot from everything. I think it's important to like sometimes have your self-help books, but then also have something fun and then something kind of artsy and elevated and
yeah,
challenge yourself to maybe learn some bigger words. Who knows?
yeah,
It broadened. I think the job of literature is it just and anything is like to expand it and deepen your well of empathy. Understand other people's experiences, and there's no greater way to do that than reading a novel.
wow. Yeah, that could open up a door to a whole other conversation. Do you think there's just like a shortage of critical thinking in the world? And I truly think that is also one of the biggest problems that we have. And we don't have to go into that right now, but more people need to read,
Yeah,
you know?
I think it's healthy. It's all, but you also hit on it too. Like it is grounding.
Mm,
It does bring you into the moment. It has some therapeutic benefits just reading. And I do think critical thinking is a must right now. And I think it is in short supply.
and it's a skill. It's things like people can train themselves at
I
reading. Reading is a great,
Yeah,
avenue.
listening has been a skill I've tried to develop more because I just even right now, as I talked over you, I want to be a better listener. And like I want to work at being a better listener. And that's a skill.
It is. At the coaching course that I took in 2020, like I said earlier, I was 40, first class, learned about boundaries, blew my mind. I had no idea that I had this like human right to be able to set boundaries with people in my life. And secondly, authentic listening and what that looks like and how eye-opening and humbling it was for me, who always would have said, I'm an excellent listener. People love to come to me for advice. But in reality, authentic listening is listening without motive, right? Without wanting to fix. It's holding space for someone and reflecting back to them what they're saying to help them understand more, right? That in itself is a skill. And I still cut people off in interviews. I still cut people off and with my clients, but it is something I'm always working at, always. I feel like the less I say, the better in most situations.
And you'd probably be right in most situations. And that takes people a while to learn that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I can't thank you enough, Colin. I know you're busy and I know there's a Leafs game in 4 minutes. So
I don't want to yeah, like just rush off to see the Leafs after this kind of intimate conversation, but I am going to do that.
you know what? We've known each other a long
Just
time.
the other thing that brings me joy, unfortunately, talk about setting yourself up for hurt. I'm a Toronto Maple Leafs fan, and I've been one for a very long time, and I think that can reflect a lot of my issues. You can chalk this whole thing down to Colin's a Leafs fan, and that's why he's got all these quirks.
Yeah.
Anyway, go
It's
Leafs, go!
exciting. Go
Yeah.
Leafs, go.